Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. To our audience is joining us on the North Shore Chamber Music Festival's website, and of course on the wonderful Violin Channel. We're very, very happy to present today a special workshop with one of the greatest cellists of our time and my very dear friend, Johannes Moser, joining us from Bonn, Germany. Welcome, Johannes. We've been friends for many years. We have toured and performed and recorded together, and it makes me very happy that you are our first virtual professor to listen to our wonderful young musicians.
It's an honor. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank our lead sponsor, the Alpha 9 Foundation, for enabling us to host this series and to introduce them to widest audience possible. And last but not least, I would like to welcome everyone also on April 10th to a wonderful program called The Colors of Virtuosity, where two fantastic violinists will be performing for you, Paul Huang and Danbi Without further ado, I'm going to present our first performer, Katherine Audas from Houston. She's studying there at Rice University, and she will be playing for us some Bach. Good luck.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, and very nice to meet you. Thank you. Kathy, I want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, what is the function of a prelude in a suite? Because I think we need to sort of cover some ground rules here, and I think we will come to some interesting points that will illuminate our work a little bit. So I want to know, what is the function of the prelude?
I think of the prelude as the introduction to the suite, an opening, something that kind of sets the mood for the rest of the movements, and the other ones kind of have more of a dance-like feel, I think, to me, and this one kind of just sets us up for a nice environment, and then the others kind of complement the prelude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good points. I think especially with environment, I want to draw your attention to the fact that when a suite was performed, let's say at the court, it wasn't like today where people paid $5 and then they would sit down and listen. But we are sort of in the court. We're in this huge room. People are talking, they're eating, they're debating, and suddenly there comes this cellist and it's like, okay, I need to ask for attention. So a prelude is also there, first of all, to create attention. Hey, I'm here. This will be worth listening to. Yeah. The second thing that I think is really important in a prelude is that, and you touched upon this in a certain way by saying we kind of set up the mood. But what we do in a prelude really is we explore what can the tonality do for me. Yeah. And we explore not only how does C major, D major, and then G major feel, but what can that tonality do for me? Yeah, and I want to know what can a C major do for us? What is sort of the characteristics of such tonality?
Well, the C major I think is very open, resonant, has a lot of joy. In the sound, there's very little like pain in the colors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, as opposed to, let's say, D minor, for example, which is rather closed, for sure. Yeah,
very like intimate and reflective. I think this one also has a lot of reflective qualities, but it's much more sunny, glowing, open. Is kind of some of the words I would use.
So the tonality of light and the tonality of, well, you could say sunshine is probably D major. Yeah, so we have a very strong sort of light, very, very strong beam of light in D major. E flat major is sort of the celestial tonality. Think of, for example, Mozart's Magic Flute, written in E flat major. And C major traditionally used to be the tonality of kings and queens. Yeah? So in a way, I need to have the feeling that you're opening, today we would say you're opening with a bang. Yeah? And what I found was a little bit missing for me is that we have something that is really essential for Baroque and classical music, which is gestures. Yeah? The individual note in a gesture is not so important. Yeah, I'll give you a great classical example. Yeah, from our favorite concerto. Yeah. By the way, D major, light, very, very friendly. And if we sort of take every molecule of that gesture and pronounce it equally, we lose the point. The point is that there is a gesture which is yam ta ta ti da da da. Yeah, so we have a, yeah. It is a gesture that rises and falls, and with a scale like we have in the beginning, it is in a way like I'm like I'm making a very sort of exuberant gesture of, hello, I'm Kathy, and I'm going to show you what C major can do for you today. Yeah, and then we start. which brings me to the next point. A prelude is always an improvisation. Yeah? And you said it yourself. We have very driven, very dance-like, well, we have dances, but we have very rhythmical elements coming up in the dances. And the prelude, on the other hand, gives us absolute freedom. Yeah? That's why, and I've, you know, I'm at the Hochschule in Cologne, so I've sat through many E-flat major preludes, and you're just like, well, this is taking a long time, shall we say? Yeah. And of course, this is maybe more of a square prelude, but in the C major, with all the gestures that we have, we can definitely go a little bit more crazy. Now let's work on that first section. How long is the first section, you would say?
I think it's until the G.
Yeah, I would even go a little bit shorter because I think that sort of sequenza, the sequence of three stories. Maybe we'll leave that for the second idea. Let's first of all explore the gesture that we can have in that C major. Why don't you go ahead? Very good. So, if you were to do something with your hand, how would you describe the three-dimensional quality of that gesture?
I think it kind of naturally flows and like settles a little bit on that C, like that.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so we talked about the ending. How do we get into that gesture? Yeah. Right now, I just tell you what I heard. I heard this. Yeah. So in a way, there was no introduction to the movement and then going down. You know, if you think of a roller coaster, we're like, and then we go down like this. Yeah. And I would love for you to hang the scale with a little bit more resistance, and then we land. Yeah. That would give me more physicality of that shape, yeah. Because in the end, those gestures are three-dimensional objects that we create, yeah. And therefore, I find it very inspiring to look for a gesture, or maybe I'll make something of clay, or I'll build something, you know, that has sort of a, or I'm terrible at painting or drawing, yeah, but I still do it sometimes, just to sort of explore what would that shape look in a different art form, yeah. So let's explore a little bit more. That I have the feeling, we are moving into that C, which is great, yeah. Exactly, and now out of that first sort of argument, something starts growing. So we are maybe a little bit timid at first,
okay.
And then it goes to full bloom. You want to give that a try? Very, very good. So now I had the feeling you are exploring the tonality, yeah? And if you want to go really micro, of course, we want to check. So the first step maybe doesn't hold a lot of exciting information, but the second one already, you know, the third is like defining if it's... Yeah? So there already is an emotional quality. Now, fourth and fifth in a scale for me are the notes that give you stability. Yeah. So maybe we give them a little bit more strength. So we have emotion, strength. Again, emotion on the sixth, I would say. Then tension on the seventh, and resolve on the C. Yeah. So can we make all of that information work in? I think so. Yeah, I think once we practice that really slowly and we understand not only there's a C major scale, but what is the function of the E within the C major scale? What is the function of the B, yeah, being the seventh, having a sort of an urge for resolution? Then, again, we don't have a two-dimensional scale anymore, but we start to have a three-dimensional object with a lot of understanding and a lot of metadata. Yeah, I want to maybe let's explore the next section. So we have that we have the sequenza. Obviously, we need 3 different colors. And what was your plan to shade those 3 sequences?
Yeah, I was imagining crescendo and then back, and then kind of like waves forward and back.
Yeah.
To measure wave.
Great. Well, last time I was at the ocean, no wave is the same, right? So I love the idea that we keep coming back and forth, but I mean, it's like trying to find a system in roulette. It's always going to be different, yeah? So without much explaining, show me 3 different waves. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, very, very nice. I really, I could see the differences. Yeah, it was great. However, between the waves, there was sort of a stoppage. There was like, okay, so we've done the first wave, so that goes in the cabinet, and now let's start the second wave. Instead of, okay, the water is flowing back, but it's still in a sort of motion that comes back. I don't know if I can find something that makes sense. Yeah, so that I have the feeling, of course, we have 3 elements, but they are sort of also flowing into each other. Yeah? So that would be something to look into. Now, when we have this long scale, how would you describe such a scale? Is there a lot of new information? What's the function of it in your mind?
I think that this scale is kind of introducing the next section, since we had that first scale to do the little introduction part, and then this part is kind of going into the more developmental part of the movement. Mm-hmm. I think it's also.
No, I think that's great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was just going to a that it's a little bit longer than the original C major, and it's getting us into more developmental. So yeah. Yeah.
No, 100% true. I agree with you that it is connecting tissue. Yeah. So we're not yet at the next pillar, so to speak, but it's sort of we're going from A to B. Yeah. And you will find that a lot in Bach's music, that he did not leave those kind of improvisations to the interpreter, to the musician, but he was one of the few in his time that actually wrote out all those transitions. Yeah. However, let's explore what's the key that this is written in, this connecting tissue.
The scale is G major.
Yes, exactly. And what's the character of G major? I mean, we have a nice example in the suites.
I think it's like kind of brilliant a little bit.
I don't know.
Okay, so maybe a little bit more.
I don't mean to impose. I don't mean to tell you how to play the first suite.
Sure.
I just find that maybe definitely has a very different character than or maybe it's kind. Okay. I find there's a lot of kindness in this tonality. Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of a lot of other G major pieces off the top of my head. I know the violin repertoire is full of it, but we are more like C and D. In any case, Doesn't matter. D minor, of course, big one for us cellists. Yeah. So maybe we can go a little bit along this idea of having a little bit less tension than we had in. But because it is longer, and there is no harmonic change, yeah, maybe we have to bring it together. You know, there's something very interesting in classical, but especially in Baroque music, is that you can think of tempo in different ways. Of course, you can think in tempo in terms of beats, but you can also think of tempo in terms of harmony change. And if there is really dense harmony change, then we need more time. Yeah? Because we need to go from one harmony to the next. If there is a long passage of the same harmony, we can have bigger beats and we can actually be a little bit more fluent. Yeah? And I find that very inspiring for a prelude, because we don't necessarily need to be guided by a 4/4 or by a 2/4 or by a 3/4. We can just go by the rhythm of the harmony. Yeah? And that is something I find very inspiring. Later on, in the music of Toru Takemitsu, for example, he goes by the rhythm of ki, and ki in the Japanese language is breath. Yeah, so he goes by breathing in and breathing out. Of course, that's very individual. And if you do yoga from once in a while, then you know that you're not necessarily always in the breathing tempo than the instructor. Sometimes the breathing is much slower than yours, sometimes faster. But I think over time, composers have always been thinking, how do I instruct rhythm? How do I instruct tempo? And it's not always, the metronomic thing. The metronome is a rather new invention around Beethoven's times from Menzel. Yeah? Before that, there was no such thing. So let's go with the harmonic metronome. And if you look at the section before, harmony change, harmony change, harmony change, and so on. Yeah. So there you have much more density. Yeah? And okay, so let's go from the last of the three waves. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Very good. So for my taste, you could be even more free, but I leave that for your decision. Now, harmonically speaking, we have a dominant and a tonic. Yeah, careful that you don't play the resolution stronger than the and that's just something maybe for homework. Maybe go through the piece just looking at tension and resolution. Yeah, because I feel sometimes we get carried away by a figure like this. Obviously, is inviting us for exuberance. Yeah, because it just lays perfectly on the cello, but harmony still rules. Yeah. So definitely, we need to make sure. If it was, I would say, okay, with a major, D major, maybe you can get away with that. Yeah, but D minor, we need to show that character. Yeah? Speaking of characters of harmonies, let's go to that wonderful section. Yeah. Because there he goes through different harmonies, one per bar. And I think this is our opportunity to explore the characters. So we have C major. We already talked about that, yeah? Like, really representative. What's the next harmony?
A minor.
A minor, exactly. What pieces of A minor come to mind?
Schumann Concerto.
Schumann Concerto, so maybe something a little bit more inward, or Yeah. So definitely A minor is not necessarily a triumphant. Yeah. So show me the difference between your C major and your A minor. I want to see what you do with that information. Very good. Okay, now we come to
D minor?
D minor, exactly. We already had that. So you said sorrow before, right? Can we make that a little bit more sorrowful? Yeah, you have to be careful now because your A minor sounded suspiciously similar to D minor, yeah? So don't give away all the sorrow in A minor. Maybe go for a certain simplicity and just inwardness. Then maybe there we can just show a little bit more grief, yeah? And so on B minor, piece that comes to mind? We will hear it later in the class.
Dvorak?
Yes, exactly. But obviously it is not. Yeah, that very distant, sort of foggy beginning. So as you can see, we're sort of finding the characters of those tonalities, and maybe this is a great place for you to just find colors automatically just by character of tonality.
Okay.
Yeah. Last question I have for you is why you changed the original bowing. I'm such a fetishist with original bowing. Was there a specific reasoning behind it?
I thought that I was using the bowing from the manuscript actually for this part, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least the one that I looked at was like two and then separate. But
did you look at the Anna Magdalena Bach, or which one did you look at?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I think so. I'll double check it for sure.
Please do, because that would completely destroy my belief system. But maybe it was maybe not going as far, or maybe in the copy it didn't show as far.
Yeah, it was hard to see for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you know, I think because it is the same as we have a chord and then we have a retake.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the first suite we have he builds in an echo effect. That's why I don't understand why some very prominent cellists were. Yeah, it takes away the idea of chord with reverberation. Reverberation, that's a very hard word for me. Okay, so here we have 3-in-1. And the reason for that being, at least as I understand it, and we will both look at the score again, and maybe I'm wrong, and then mea culpa, yes? But in case that it is 3-in-1, it means that we have a chord and we have a retake, which can function as an upbeat, or it can function as a repercussion. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would make a little bit more sense. What I did quite hear with the bowing that you did was how you were showing me tension and resolution. Obviously, it gets resolved here, kinda. Yeah, not fully, but kinda. Yeah. Small differences in that would be very important, because obviously the harmony again is very slow, because for, I don't know, I didn't count them, but let's say just for the sake of argument, 40 bars we have the G that goes on forever. Yeah, changing only here. Yeah. So for that whole section, we only have one bass harmony. The organ player probably put down the foot on the G and then just improvises on top. Yeah. And in order for it not to get too square, we first of all can breeze through it a little bit more. Speaking of improvisation, and pick the notes that are important to you. And this is really important, because when we talk about interpretation in Bach, when there's 10 cellists, there's 11 opinions. at least. Yeah. So what you would have to do is in a section like this, is that you pick the notes that are important to you to show. Yeah, and then you have an interpretation by picking what is important to you. I can just tell you what's important to me is to show, first of all, the harmony resolution here, and then I love. So I show. That's something that I show, for example, and so on. Yeah, and through that, once you pick sort of things that you want to show, suddenly this very long section under one harmony starts to have a three-dimensional shape. Yeah. Oh, and then one last thing I want to ask you. You get rather, for lack of a better word, rather pensive at the end with the chords. And I wanted to, just out of interest, because I am interested in different ways of playing this music, because I try to play this very grand. What is your take on that? Why do you go back so much?
I think that for me, I'm listening to like the reverberation of the chords in the rests and the silence, and I kind of saw it as coming back to C major, I guess, traveling through like a little bit of darker harmonies and then kind of reopening back, and then from there you would go into the rest of the suite, I think. But I guess like keeping it in more of like a regal sense, I would definitely try it with less reservedness.
I'm not saying that there was anything wrong. I'm just interested in why you would go away. I personally just read more drama in those harmonies, but if you feel that the darkness of the harmonies, which they definitely have, is more something that lets you go back, and then you sort of come to a place of intimacy, and then you are able to sort of go out into the suite, more power to you, absolutely. So I wouldn't say there was anything wrong. You just have to keep in mind that, as you say in the beginning, we are getting prepared for the atmosphere of the suite, or for the for the character of the suite. We cannot completely fall out of it, and then if you go back so much, then you need to show again, C major actually is strong.
Okay.
Otherwise, you start so strong in the C major, and then it just sort of fizzles out, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So if you do go down like that, maybe a good idea to come back. Be like da 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 da, C major, Popeye having a spinach moment. Yeah. So then you regain your strength. Great. Kathy, that was fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Virtual applause from all the tens of millions of people watching us. And I represent them. Great.
Bravo, Kathy. Absolutely fantastic playing. And we're going to welcome Sydney Lee, who will play for us Dvorak Concerto. And hello, Sydney. And I will step into the backstage area. here. We will stop here.
This was totally my fault. I was muted. I'm sorry. I thought I did a lot of motion, but yeah, you didn't hear me.
Sorry.
So first of all, congratulations. Wonderful, wonderful playing. I just want to give you a few pointers that will be helpful for you. The danger with everything after figure 4 is that we will have a different tempo, you know, sometimes every 2 bars, every 4 bars, every 8 bars, yeah? So the danger of the Dvorak concerto getting choppy is huge, yeah? It's the same with Brahms F. You got one beautiful / difficult spot, and the next beautiful / difficult spot, and another one, and in order for it not to sound like separate spots all the time, we need to make an effort to sort of connect them a little bit more. Yeah? Namely, for example, when you come out of in a section like here, you know, you had a lot of resistance here, and then was kind of fast going. Then you went very fast here. And then there was a little bit more resistance here. Yeah, and so on. I don't mean to pick it apart, but I'm just saying there is someone that has to put it together. And usually she or he didn't finish the symphony, so your rehearsal is cut in half anyways. So if your interpretation is too much like a roller coaster, and it's very hard just to sort of put it together, and it's also unnecessary. Yeah, we need to have a little bit more symphonic approach where it's needed in a way. Yeah, so that just as a sort of general pointer, and I'm sure we will get back to that in a second. It's also very helpful to know with whom you are playing. Yeah, for example, this section, who is playing with you? Of course, now you have the world's best orchestra next to you, but in all the second best orchestras, who would play with you?
The wind.
Wind section, exactly. And you can be sure that they're 15 feet behind, and that they don't have an attack like a piano, ram, ba bam, but they have fa 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 fa. Yeah. So rushing there is not an option. Yeah, especially for the 16th note. And it does help if you elongate a little bit with the bow at the end. It's also good connecting tissue. So if you take this too short in the bow, not only do you lose the last note, but you also lose the connection and you get a little bit too fast. Yeah, so we have to be careful with that. Great. So why don't we take it from the top? The thing that is very important for me for the first couple of notes is that there is a sort of a cause and effect situation. In order for us to get to that explosion, we need to start creating a lot of tension on that first note that then leads to that explosion. If it's just a strong note, that ba 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 is sort of by itself. So it would be wonderful if you could, you know, without pressure, but maybe with movement, start creating tension once you are sort of over the half. Yeah, that this is not just sort of dead wood, but it actually gives us possibility of development. Do you just want to play the first 2 bars, maybe?
Sure.
Just by yourself, so that I hear it. Okay. Yeah, and now do it in a way where you're not handing the audience the instruction manual, but you know that you do it, and you do it, but you're not telling us what you're doing. The cause should not be, she's doing crescendo, but it should be like, I can't sit still because this is so exciting. Yeah, that's the effect it should have. Very good. And as you know, in the orchestral part, your colleagues in the cello section da, ba, 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 have that pizzicato. And that for me is a great indication that I play towards that pizzicato. So, di, ba, 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 yeah. And that pizzicato is also a point where I feel I've reached the point of maximum pressure, and then I can have my explosion. Yeah. So maybe let's do it again together with the wonderful orchestra, and play towards, and maybe give us a little bit more cello pizzicato, if possible. Thank you. Yeah, very good. It says quasi improvisando, and like all of us, including myself, when I listen to recordings of myself playing this live, suddenly it's very fast. Yeah, and the reason for that, I think, is that we don't give enough attention to the dotted eighth notes, which is especially the second one. I played with the fourth finger. I couldn't see what you're doing. Are you doing the same thing? Yeah, much better. But it's uncomfortable enough. Yeah, let's face that discomfort and really stay cantabile on those dotted notes. There's no reason to cut those short. And of course, we want to have panache. We want to have drama going on, but by doubling the tempo, I feel that's kind of a cheap trick, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So you can stay as dotted as you want, but cantabile on the long notes. Directly from trombones. Okay, thank you. Yeah, at least on. Thank you. Great. At least on my end, Zoom was cutting out, so I couldn't quite tell. But I had the feeling maybe it was still rather quick. One question I have for you. Now you do a wonderful, exciting development on that first note. What about the up bow? Are we just leaving the parking lot to the next section, or maybe we can also create some tension there? Create tension. Yeah. That up bow, especially, you get the tension building for free because we are going back to the frog, right? We're going back to the heel. So don't give it away. You were building fantastically, and then kind of. It is not that you were playing it weak. It is just that I didn't feel that you had the same interest in the up bow than you had in the down bow. Yeah? I don't know if interest is an emotional quality. It is for me. I feel if you're interested in a note or in a section, that gives an emotional vibe. Can we hear that? Can we hear your interest? Yes, very good. Interest on the first up bow, amazing. Interest on the second up bow was already, that section is coming. Yeah? And I could see it by the way that you were lifting the bow very early. Yeah? Listen, we're splitting hairs, but we're splitting hairs because you're that good. Yeah? If I was more general, maybe you should get worried. But this is these are only compliments that I'm making. Yes, very good. In the chords, what are your top two chords? Yeah. Oh no. Sorry. I mean, in terms of top two chords of tension. Which has the biggest tension? Because they all sound great, but if everything sounds great, nothing sounds great. So let's pick the ones that are most important to you, and then show them extra. Which ones would those be? Which have the most tension?
Probably the
Second one is on the list. Okay, great. And which another one?
Probably the last one.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Yeah, very, very good. So maybe the first one leads to the second one, and then the 3 chords lead to the last one. Yeah, 2 chords leading, or maybe you play different notes. I don't know. What? You play different notes. Okay, very good. Depends on the edition. Doesn't matter. Yeah, put your focus on these 2 chords. We're going to come to that in a second. That was great. This is my favorite chord in the beginning because it has the 9th, and with the F it also has a 7th. Yeah. So if you go too quickly on the top note, I don't get the full satisfaction of that chord. So really park on the bass, I would say. Yeah, that should be painful almost. Yeah. Great. So let's do the whole opening with interesting chords, two top chords, and then show me a lot of interest in that chord as well. Yeah. Very, very good. Excellent, excellent. When I say how to show best the interest in the chords, you were showing me the top notes a lot, or yeah. But of course, the bass is also part of it. Yeah, and we are so used as cellists to do sort of the karate kahi kahi kahi. Motion, yeah, and I wonder if we can play 3 strings, at least maybe we can roll them a little bit more, yeah, so that I don't get that bahi bahi feeling, because that adds a rhythmical element to it that is not really written, I would say, yeah, and it also it disturbs the woodwind section. Yeah, we do have some cantabile there on the top. Yeah? So we need to have a line as well. Good. So careful with on your long notes. Who is playing what? Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. It's winds also, exactly, and they're playing pa 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 pam pa pa pam. Yeah, a lot of things to say for the winds. If you play too quickly, they have no chance, and that's already going to be a part where it's gonna fall apart. Yeah, dangerous spot. So there you really need to be a little bit in 4/4. And what helps me when I practice it is that I really fill out all 16 notes. You want to try that once, just to go from with 16 notes? Very good, and play the 16th notes. Yeah, but you're not playing with the same conviction. We need the full emotion. Very good, very good. And then it always sounds like triplets. Again, quasi improvisando, with the big accent on quasi. Yeah? You can, of course, stretch it a little bit, but make sure that we are aware that it's not 3, but... And then we go into a faster section there. Yeah? Careful with finagling too much with the tempo. Next thing I wanted to talk about is with whom are you duetting here?
At the trill you're talking about, right?
At the trill, exactly. A flute, exactly. And whenever the flute has piano espressivo, of course, what comes out is molto forte. Yeah, and so you need to battle the flute a little bit. Yeah, these trills are very expressive. Yeah, don't see the trills as sort of a technical moment, but see the trills as a very exuberant vibrato. And of course, the vibrato we shape, and the trill we can also shape. Yeah, it should not. To me, they sounded rather the same when you were playing that. If you don't mind, can we go after pesante? Your trills all have the same tempo. They all have the same accents. And I definitely think this is appoggiatura. And again, we have here that seventh is with more. And it's weird because they are on the uppos. Yeah? Don't just accentuate all of them, but maybe find a way to go in those trills, because they, at least in my score, they don't have accents. Maybe with yours it's different.
No, I think I'm just adding them.
Yeah. There's no harm in that. I just think you could find a different way of initiating those bows. Yeah, maybe with weight. Yeah. Because if everything gets sort of a karate hit, then it becomes a bit square, I would say. Yeah, and we are still in a sort of the improvisation. There is no need yet to introduce too much verticality. Yeah, it should still be rather horizontal. Okay, very good. Now let's look at figure 4. When I look at the orchestra, or in this case the piano reduction, yeah, it is something joyful. It could even be a dance. Yeah, so careful with that. Is German robo dance stuff. Yeah, that is. And I know what I'm talking about. So in that department, so it should be light. It should be joyful. And he writes fortepianos, right? Those are not sforzatissimo pianos. Yeah, so they should definitely be, and they should have a little bit of an afterlife. So after the attack, yeah, there is some life to those notes. And none of this stuff. Yeah, and you cannot unthink what I just did here. So you will play it perfectly now. Can we go 2 bars before figure 4? I hope that's 2 bars. I don't know. Yes, very good. You are so good that it's so easy for you. Yeah, careful. But there is a resistance, and there are 20 Czech people dancing together like this. Yeah, in a circle. There's a sort of a square dance thing. Yeah, there is no way that they can follow. Yeah, so it has a physicality to it. Yeah, which is this thing. Yeah, so careful with running ahead. Okay, next section. You played absolutely beautiful your crescendo. If I can just give you a little technical detail here, spend half the bow on the first 3 notes, and then the 2 Cs get half-half, and then you save again. Yeah, what I saw before. Yeah, that you were spending a lot of bow on those first 3 and just a little meager one on your top, which of course with crescendo diminuendo should be your top note, should be the loudest note. Yeah, so yeah. And then if you want to over calculate, you can of course say, okay, I have 3 notes for this half. So for the 3rd note, I want to use half of that, and then I want to use a third of that. So you use 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's not 1, 2, 3, the same amount and then 4. But then you have the crescendo automatically. So yeah, and it's worth practicing that one slowly. But maybe let's go once slowly from. Yeah. Super. Now, the reason why we spend so much time usually on that 3rd note is because we have a stretch. And we're like, ah, and then stretch, and it takes a lot of bow, yeah? As soon as you hit that first finger, start this stretch, yeah? I mean, another possibility, of course, would be 1, 2, 3, 3. Or 1, no, sorry, I'm doing 1, 1, 2, 3. Because I'm a sucker for that glissando. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. Great. Very nice. And let's do it once with your fingering, please. Yes. So just to be aware that your stretch is, how shall we say, is requiring more bow than it's allowed to have. So it really exceeds its allowance, shall we say. Yeah, at the cost of your exuberant C. Yeah? And the C we cannot compromise because that's our top. And it would be a pity if we played, because that would give us another verticality. Yeah? I want to talk about the bar before, where you have, to me it sounds again very vertical on the beats. Yeah, and I want to ask you to once play 1 and 3. So you play 1 and then upbeat. So you take these 4 notes together. You don't take these 4 together, sondern, yeah. Because the whole bar is a big upbeat for our journey up to the C. Yeah? So if we make this too vertical, we can never lift off. But this is a nice trick with the 1 and 3. And each time, obviously, at least in that section, I do have a crescendo in my edition. You have the same thing? Yeah, very good, very good. So each time, just take a section more, and it's terrace dynamics. Yeah, yeah. And then dive, of course. Yeah, and absolutely brilliant. I think the best way to make that terrace dynamic is for each time you reach a new terrace, you just add another 2 inches on the bow. Yeah. So right now, I had the feeling that you were doing most of it with pressure. Yeah. And if you do it with distance, it will start to bloom much nicer. Yeah, so yeah, instead of, because then you just start to dig into the string, and that's not the character of it, I think. You were beautifully tricking me. You were just doing the first one a lot, and then, but that's okay. In my Czech edition of Bernreiter, I have a tenuto on the first note, which brings me to the middle of the bow, and so I'm not necessarily expanding the bow from the heel towards the just towards the upper half of the bow, but actually I expand from the middle. Yeah, so that gives me less of that sort of heel quality, but it gives me more of a singing quality. So I have the tenuto, and on the last one I have so much bow that actually this is the loudest note, and then and so on. Yeah, I'm maybe over technicalizing the whole thing, but once you understand that by really scheduling your bow in that way, you do not have to worry about crescendo diminuendo anymore, because you've, just like making fingerings, in my part, I actually put middle of the bow, half bow, you know, I really try to put that in there. And then, of course, in performance, you can kick it out, or you can stick to it if you need that safety net. Yeah, but there is no reason not to schedule the bow, I would think. Yeah, in that sense. Okay. Very good. So now we come to which of course you played absolutely brilliant. Harmonically speaking, maybe we can once look at the difference between and yeah, I think we have more triumph and definitely more resistance here. But play it once slowly with your wonderful orchestra. Yeah. So the magic is in the woodwinds. Sorry for my terrible singing, yeah? But the Dvorak, 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 yeah? These are very longing notes in the longing in the sense of of desire and also of pain. So you know, from figure 4 until here till figure 5, we've been building like crazy, yeah? And what are we building towards to? Just triumph? I don't think so. I think there is, because it's also rather painful, yeah? However, when you come to your top note, it seemed to me like it was business as usual. It was like, thank you very much. And then we go on, yeah? But are you a hiker? Do you like?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. So I can tell you, after an 8-hour hike to the top of a mountain, yeah, you start at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're exhausted and you've been, you know, climbing, and then you come to the top and you enjoy the view. Yeah, and it's so satisfying because you've been working for 8 hours for it. Now, you've been working from quasi improvisando to this moment for that G. Yeah? But you collect the G and you're like, okay, thanks very much, I'm going down again. Yeah? So, in a way, the payoff didn't happen. Yeah? So when you come to the top, enjoy the cinemascope view and then continue. Yeah? Also, you have to see that there is orchestra reverberation at the beginning of the note, and so you need to allow yourself enough time and enough upper part of the bow to really shine through that orchestra that once it dies down. Yeah, because we have that big chord at the beginning of the note, and because there is a sforzato in the basically done by the orchestra, we don't have to You don't have to invest a lot of bow there, but actually, and then again start blooming here. Yeah. Or are you the adventurous type that takes it on one bow?
No, I separate.
You also separate. Yeah. Yeah, because of course originalism. But I would need an extra couple of inches here. But I tried, but I failed. So unfortunately, I had to change the bowing. Doesn't matter, because the bow change anyways is covered by still by the orchestra sound. Yeah? So we have Roms, da, and your blooming should just give you a little bit more time. Let's go from figure 5. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And also now you're slowing down to wasn't as abrupt, because before you allowed a little bit more stretch. Yeah, careful though that we don't slow down too much, because the oboe still has to continue your line, and then you have to continue the oboe's line. And if you each get slower and slower and slower, then we will end up in the tempo that you did in here. And he says, of course. What is in your score? Molto allargando or molto something molto? What does it say? That's fine.
I have dolce and molto sostenuto.
Molto sostenuto, but if you look at the metronome markings, if I remember correctly, it says tempo 100. Which is not molto allargando at all, or molto sostenuto at all. Yeah, because what do we have before? I think 116. No, in figure 4.
Yeah, 116.
116 exactly, which also is not so fast. So careful with. Yeah, 116 is great because it gives you a body. Yeah, it gives you a physicality. Yeah. So careful with the molto sostenuto. I think the molto sostenuto is in the sound, but we haven't reached the second movement yet. Yeah? We are still... And you need to find a way how sort of this fluent tempo doesn't seem unsatisfying. There is no point in you doing the right thing, but it feels like you're not able to express yourself. Yeah, I did feel when you were playing it that slow, that, for example, that triplet, each note was important. And if you, I don't know if you listened into the other lesson, but this is a gesture. Yeah. Yeah. It's time to say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye, yeah. Which unfortunately also is the case for us, because I think we ran out of time. But I want to congratulate you for your absolutely excellent playing. Please do yourself a favor and watch my video on that section. And if you can, look at the manuscript, yeah, the original version. Have you done that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very cantabile, and there's no reason for us to turn into Formula 1 sports car mode. Yeah, but it's actually very singing sport. Yeah, so that we do not disturb, or if anything, enhance the beautiful line that we get from the winds. And so on, yeah. It's very melancholic and very cantabile, and here come the sporty cellists, you know. And we have to remember, this section was not an idea from Dvorak, but it was Hanush Vihan that thought that was a good idea to do that, yeah. And since then, in 1894 or 96, when Hanush Vian was making those changes, cellists have been sweating over that place. Yeah, you are far too advanced to believe that this is a technically challenging spot. It's a musical spot. It is a cantabile spot. Yeah, you can do things that are much more difficult, I would assume. Yeah? Yes, great. Okay, thank you very much. That was fun to me, and thank you both.
Bravo. And if I can just add one more thing, I want to encourage everybody, not only cellists, do watch Johannes' videos on YouTube, addressing every possible technical and musical aspect. They're fantastic. I've enjoyed them tremendously.
Thank you, Vadim.
Moving on to our HAYDN concerto. Daniel Kaler should appear with us at any second.
Can we
Daniel,
use 1 second? I want to readjust my camera because it's getting a little bit dark here in Germany.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hi, Danny. We will start in a second. Yes, in Europe it's 6:15, and we're in Bonn. It's getting dark.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it's always kind of dark in Bonn, but don't tell anybody.
I step back, and here's HAYDN.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Is your own cadenza?
Yeah, I wrote it with a friend of mine here at Rice.
It's fun. It's fun. It's very good. Is it Danny? If only Haydn would have lived 200 years later, I would say your sound and your phrasing is absolutely 100% spot on. But unfortunately, we have to look a little bit at the classical playing, at least from the way I understand it. And one principal thing that I find is very helpful for me, because clearly I admire your sound and your vibrato is so focused and it sounds beautiful. Yeah, there's by our standards. But when you look at the classical era, clearly they were far closer to Baroque, far closer to Bach than they were to, let's say, Schönberg or Zemlinsky. And also, I think the focus was more, not that the phrasing was, or that the beauty didn't necessarily have to come from the left hand, but it came from the right hand. And I think if you are able not to lose any of the wonderful ideas that you have, but instead of realizing them with your left hand, but you can realize them with your right hand, I think we are a huge step closer to the way of classical playing. Yeah, and we can find very concrete examples. For example, in the beginning, you have such a wonderful, beautiful, focused sound here. But instead of doing the motion here, let's put it to the right hand. Yeah, and I'm not saying that it has to be all non-vibrato, but if we are able to, because we're using both hands, yeah. But if we are able to transfer the emotion over to the right hand and just give it a little bit of color in the left hand, then I think then Pa is something that speaks much more natural. It speaks from the bow, yeah, and this music and also the understanding of bow and fingers in that time was still very much modeled after the human voice. If I don't give enough breath to my voice, and I'm a terrible singer, then it will sound tight and it will sound very unvariable. Yeah, but if I have a lot of variety in bow speed, in bow distribution, in attack and all that, if I speak with the bow, I'm taking away a lot of the burden of the left hand. Yeah. Okay, so that's sort of the theoretical overview. Let's put it into practice. Can we, first of all, speak very clearly, mainly with the right hand, and make it very, in German we say knackig, which is very speaking, I would say, or very, very articulated. Can we just try that we have a lot of articulation in this run going up? Can you try that without piano, please? Yeah, and automatically there's yeah, and instead of doing the reverberation, that's such a difficult word for me. I'm so sorry. Instead of doing the reverb with the left hand, let's do it with the right hand. Yeah? Or with the string itself. Ah, left hand. No? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we are creating our own sound after the note, and these are punctuated notes. Yeah, they have a life afterwards. They have a vocal component. These notes. Yeah, they're not just articulation of the right hand, and then the left hand has to take care of the vocal part. No, the vocal part is also in the bow. Yeah? They do have a life. And if you want to put a little bit of vibrato, that's fine. But don't rely 100% on the left hand, please. Yeah, and as you can see, If you want to have a little bit more space, probably we need to use the chords fully to the upper half to have enough space for it to speak. Now, a thing that is very common in the classical era is that we have a mixture of virtuosity and cantabile. Yeah? So we start with a lot of virtuosity here in the bow, and then we switch to cantabile. Again, virtuosity, and then maybe this is just sort of a afterthought. Yeah? But to make sure that with your articulation and with your vibrato, you don't mix up these two elements. Yeah. So I would say definitely the articulation is and the virtuosity part is coming more from the right hand, and then maybe a little bit of vibrato. Sometimes people even do bow vibrato. That seems a little artificial today, but yeah, in the beginning of people writing about string playing and about when you look at Leopold Mozart, for example, you will find them writing about tremolando, about tremolo, and by that they didn't mean, but they meant either this, like the tremor, kind of a tremor like this, or even I would not do too much of that. Yeah, but just to say there is that option. Yeah, what this does do, it frees up the arm, so we don't have a straight arm, but we have at least one sort of vibration there. Yeah, very good. Yeah, you want to try once how beautiful this sound can be just from the right hand. Yeah, and without this now, just using the right hand in the normal way. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. You see what changed was that what you had before, which was a little bit more glued to the string, you introduced breath to the notes. Yeah? And we need more of that. We definitely need more of that. Yeah? So that that there is enough air. This may be silly, and I'm fine with that. I think of each note being a living creature, yeah? And its lifespan is sometimes very short, maybe 2-second lifespan. But you need to give that living organism enough oxygen to survive, yeah? If you don't give it enough oxygen, life quality is going to be terrible, yeah? So we need to oxygenate the notes in a way, for them to bloom, to thrive. Yeah, and that's clearly what we want to do with those notes. Okay, one more time from the top. And just enjoy the quality that you get from the right hand, and then later on we'll add a little bit of left hand seasoning. Yeah? Yeah, very good. Okay. If I may say, the left hand is already is automatism. Yeah, there is not even questions asked about the vibrato. Now, I'm far from saying that people were not vibrating at the time of HAYDN. If we look at Anton Kraft, who was the cellist for use of HAYDN, clearly he was the new music cellist. Yeah, he first worked with HAYDN in Esterházy, and then he went to Vienna to work with Beethoven. So they're definitely. He was definitely looking for how to expand the expression range of the cello. And I don't know if you know the Anton Kraft Cello Concerto in C major, but it's really challenging. Yeah. So maybe something to look for on Spotify. Another cellist around that same time who was playing string quartet with on occasion with a certain Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was Boccherini. And we know from Boccherini that he was actually looking for some sort of vibrato. Yeah, stereotypically, I would say Italian, looking for beauty, looking for the most beautiful sound. Probably just using the bow was not enough for him. But definitely, the bow was still the main source of expression. Yeah, and so Rome wasn't built in a day. I understand if it's not changeable right away, but I would want to leave you with that thought. Now, let's look at the form of that opening without looking into the music. How many bars are in the opening section? Or the theme, how many bars does it have?
I think 8.
Yeah, that is the surprising thing. It actually has 5. And that, no, this is, my teeth fell out because of the surprise when I was actually analyzing it. So you're at no fault here. Of course, we always think of classical music being built in 4, 8, 12, sometimes 16. Yeah, and along comes Joseph Haydn with his funny / revolutionary spirit, and he says, "Screw all of you! I'm gonna do a 5-bar phrase." Yeah, and I'm gonna show you what the 4-bar phrase would have sounded like. Beautiful, yeah? But here comes Joseph Haydn and says, okay, we're going to insert a 5th bar into the middle of it. I'm going to destroy, well, they didn't say classical form because there was no such thing, but I'm going to destroy form as it is. And I'm gonna be revolutionary about that. So we need to show the difference between the sort of normal material and the revolutionary 5th bar, which is actually the 3rd bar, yeah, which is inserted. So if you spend all your panache already, I do not hear any difference when you come to the chords, okay? So you need to reserve that sort of extra level. I would never say aggression, but maybe of drive, the extra portion of drive for those chords, if you know what I mean, yeah? Do you want to try that? Be grand, be big in those 4 bars, but in the 5th bar you give me something special. Let's give that a try. Yes, excellent, excellent, excellent. So that would be one version of a gazillion possibilities. But at least now you know, and you cannot unthink that fact. Yeah? Another thing that we need to talk about, and that was already discussed when we were talking about Bach, is that in the classical period, the gesture is hugely important. So for example, when you have I would say so, yum da da dum da yum ba, yeah? These are not on one plateau, yum da da dum da dum da, but they do have a sort of gesture, and the same thing with the scale that comes afterwards. Yeah, this is just connecting tissue. So he tries to get from the low C to the high C. So give me another possibility for connecting tissue instead of that scale. What could he have written, or what would be a variation? For example, exactly. So once you are aware that this is an improvisation, you can be much more free about it. Yeah. For example, yeah, that's elegant. Or if you want to be more assertive, yeah. Or if you say, okay, harmonically, I'm more interested in that F, then you go to the middle. Yeah, you have a lot of possibilities. But to play the scale in sort of rhythmical, correct way is a lost opportunity. Yeah, and I'm working now on a concerto by Josef Reicher. Yeah, and so I'm very much into looking into those old texts, and the person with whom I'm working right now on this concerto, he alerted me to the fact that almost in every treaty by Leopold Mozart, by Quantz, by Czerny, you will find the statement of the correct version and the beautiful version. Yeah. The correct version, as it's printed, And nobody can say anything against that because that's the correct version. But of course, someone of your ability and of your cellistical possibility will definitely go for the beautiful version. So you will look for the beauty that is important to you. Yeah, and then you come to these different versions that I was talking about. Yeah. The same thing you find, for example, in these are not straight scales, but these are gestures. Yeah, and again, the individual molecule, the individual note is not interesting. It is the gesture made out of all those molecules that actually create the interest. Yeah. And one last thing I want to alert you to is harmony here. Yeah. What's the first harmony? We are in A
minor.
A minor, exactly. And what characteristics come to mind?
Melancholy.
Yeah,
As a
perfect.
character,
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. What's the next one?
D major.
D major, exactly. Any ideas there?
D major. Bach 6.
Bach 6, exactly. So definitely not timid at all, right? So we depart drastically from, emotionally speaking, and also from characteristically speaking, from that A minor. G major, yeah. We're going through all the Bach suites, so now we come to the first suite, yeah. Maybe a little bit more kind. And we come to C major. Yeah, Bentley moment, yeah. So really exuberant. You need to show me those characters, please. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity. Because again, technically speaking, it's first of all not challenging, and second of all, it's far below your maximum possibility of technical things. So the technicality is not going to stop us. Now we're interested in the music and in the harmony of it. Yeah. So show me those different characters if you don't mind. What is a good place to start? Maybe from there.
Could I start?
Of course. Which gives us again a possibility to show. We have A minor, then we have D minor. Yeah. Which reminds me of the summer of Vivaldi. Yeah. They have different qualities, yeah. A minor, D minor, then we go back to A minor. Sorry. And we go to E minor. Obviously, the structure of these harmonies, what they make?
Well, I was thinking, it's a sequence, but well, yeah, I mean, from even bar 67, it's a falling fifth sequence.
It's a cadence.
Oh.
And then we return to A minor, yeah?
Right.
So
I guess I was just thinking bigger picture for the next section.
For what comes afterwards as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just for this 6 couplets and 30-second notes passage, we go through a cadence. So we need to show tonic, subdominant, dominant in a little bit more prominent way. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you show me the characters of the sequence. You were absolutely correct with what you said. I think it was a misunderstanding. So show me the cadence and then show me the bigger sequence.
Just on the Vivaldi part.
suddenly the whole passage makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, in a way, I hear more characters. Just make sure that when I go to that dominant, it has a little bit. It's just a little bit stronger. You know, because of the string crossing, I would say there's almost no meat on the bone. These notes are super short, and therefore it is very hard to modulate them in character, but also in dynamic. Yeah. So if we want to show them moving notes, maybe it would be worth playing them a little bit longer, just so that they have a little bit more substance to them. And so on, yeah? So that you show me a little bit more, what are the interesting notes, what are the moving notes? Yeah? You want to do that one more time?
Sure.
Thank you. Very, very good. I loved the tonic and the subdominant when it came to the tonality that has the most drama, I would say, because it's the dominant. I think you need to stay a little bit more on the string. If you are too spiccato, even with the best intention of putting the most emphasis on those notes, if they are too short, it will not transport. By transport, I mean be audible or understandable to a public, that this is actually the one with the biggest tension and the one with the biggest drama in it, I would say. No? So, I mean, of course, it's very dry to analyze, the concerto harmonically speaking. But once you are able to read the harmonies and translate the harmonic functions into an emotion, I think that will bring it a huge step forward. You know, now that we just identified this cadence by itself, I mean, you don't have to be a creative genius in order just to say, okay, cadence, obviously dominant is dominating the other harmonies. Then the interpretation gets formed out of the harmonic information that we have. And for me, that's the way to go with, for the first building block with HAYDN, definitely with Bach, to a certain degree with Beethoven, and also honestly with Schumann, yeah, and Mendelssohn. So I find these are composers that when I learn them, or when I try to acquaint myself with this music, I start with the harmonies, and I'm like, what? Because they were still believing that harmonies had a certain meaning, yeah, and tonalities had a certain meaning. C major has a completely different meaning than A minor, yeah, and not just on paper, but in emotion and in feeling, yeah. So, yeah, using the harmony as a starting point and then translating it into emotion, I think is very useful and very helpful for this music. Danny, it was a real pleasure. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for playing so great, and we'll all reconnect again when we don't have to wear masks. And I'm growing my own mask.
Bravo, Danny, and let's welcome back Sydney. And if Kathy is still with us, she can come into the picture. Let's have a very quick talk. Everyone is aware that Johannes kindly agreed to answer a few questions. So please, guys, if you have them, do ask away. Sydney, why don't you go first?
I want to say thank you so much for your time and for all your insightful words. It was really wonderful to work with you. I guess I have more of a specific question. So I'm going to be learn the other movements of the Dvorak. And there's one part in the third movement in the beginning where I guess there's an option to do all of the notes in an uppo. Right before like the where is it? Before.
Yeah, you mean
that part, and of course there's the option to do a separate bow too, but just out of curiosity, what would your advice be in terms of approaching that part? If I wanted to do it all uppo, what would your advice be in terms of just approaching that part?
So first of all, I'll tell you why I chose not to play it all uppo. First of all, it's a risk for me, because that is not. I'm fine with it when I come. For example, Rococo. I play uppo staccato, but this you would have to come from the air. So for me, that is risky. The second part why I decided not to do that is that with the uppo staccato you will not have as much meat on the bone of the notes, if you know what I mean. So they will sound rather choppy, and I personally need the sound. Yeah. Now, if you
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's not necessarily just pertaining to Dvorak, but like other pieces that do require that kind of technique. I was wondering, because I struggle with that particular stroke a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, there's different ways about it. I do think building tension on the string and then releasing it is a good first step. So to think that you can come from the air, just like spiccato should not come from the air, but it should start from the string, right? So it's starting from the string rather than coming from the air, yeah? And then is probably you're glued on the string. When I practice, for example, Rococo, I make sure that I have 6 weeks, and in week 1, I play very, very slowly, yeah? And I try to do maximum 1 metronome mark a day, just to really build it, yeah? And you will realize that you will reach a tempo when you will have to change the angle, and you will also maybe have to change the pressure of the fingers once you reach a certain tempo. So it is very hard to emulate the bow perfectly how you're going to play it in tempo. For example, I personally, I have to lift my fingers because otherwise my bow is too heavy, just as an example. Yeah. But if I practice it slowly, the fingers stay on. So it's like a fighter jet. When they go past Mach 2, they have to change the angle of the wings. Yeah. And it's the same with the bowing. After a certain tempo, you have to adjust how you hold the bow. However, for me at least, it is impossible to skip the slow practice. Yeah, I cannot start at a faster tempo with already the other bowing. I need to go through the motions of the other bowing. You know what I mean? So I build it very slowly, and what happens is I have a I take my wrist sort of as a turning point. I build tension and then I push forward. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's sort of a rolling motion. Yeah. So if you take this angle, that would be a good idea. Yeah. I would be careful in practicing uppo staccato by the virtue of cramping your arm and hoping that the tremor that comes out of it is going to give you a good uppo staccato. First of all, it's not variable in tempo because you mostly have one tempo when it comes to the shiver, yeah, and it is very hard to control, yeah. And then when you need to do a down bow, yeah, then it doesn't work anymore. So the tension only works for the up bow. with the down bow, again, I have a sort of circular motion here. Yeah? Practice both, by the way, down and up. Give you extra points. Yeah? And use the popper. And so on. Yeah? That is great. Don't start with practicing apostaccato in the literature before you are able to do it, because your literature will remember your beginning status, and you should dump all your beginning mistakes on popper. Don't dump them on Dvorak, if you know what I mean. Yeah, pieces have memories, and scary. I start Saint-Saëns concerto, and my 16-year-old self comes out. Yeah. Yeah, and I have to remember, I'm 22, so I'm far more advanced now. Yeah?
That's a great advice. Thank you, Johannes. Guys in Houston, any questions?
Sure, I had a question. I was wondering how your mindset or thought process differs for a live performance versus a recording setting.
Yeah, this is a very good question, because I personally struggle a lot in recording sessions. There's always a point in every good recording when the mood goes south, and I don't necessarily have that in live performance. So I need to be aware that, of course, the time that you spend on a recording is far longer than a live performance. What I find personally very difficult in a recording is that you need to create the excitement, and you need to create the sound as if you are playing for someone. Yeah, and if the only thing that you're playing for is a microphone that's staring you in the face, it's very hard to convey that joy and emotion. So in a way, you have to trick yourself. Either you play for a recording engineer, yeah. If you play with other people, you have to make sure that you really play for them. Or you find some sort of method in order to create that feeling that you have a purpose in your sound. Otherwise, a very perfect stale recording is going to come out of it. Yeah? And another thing to keep in mind is that you can get lost in the search for perfection when editing, but also when recording. Yeah? And I think we need to come to terms with the fact that well, as a human, we're not perfect, yeah. And to have a really human and touching recording, there needs to be a certain amount of dirt, yeah. It shouldn't be awfully out of tune, but if there's a little scratch on a note, maybe that gives a sort of feeling of liveliness. Even, of course, you have to gauge it by case. Yeah, I'm not saying every scratch should be maintained or should stay in the recording. But I remember the first recording that I did, Shostakovich sonatas and Weinberg sonata. I got the first edit, and then I sent my the editor of the recording. I sent him a 10-page wish list of edits, and he was so nice. He was like, thank you for listening so closely, and for making sure that this is going to be the best possible recording. Now divide it by 10, and you sent me the top picks on 1.5 pages. Yeah, and he was absolutely right, because if he would have implemented all changes, he would have cut the recording to death. Yeah, he would have edited it to death. And there are recordings out there like that are absolutely pristine. Some wind players will even edit out their breathing, yeah, and you get a Mozart quintet or a Brahms quintet from very famous clarinet players that edit out their breath, and that is an example where I say, well, you have a perfect recording, but it's inhumane, and therefore it doesn't speak to me at all. If anything, it frightens me and makes me suffocate. Yeah. So enjoy the scratches.
That's great. Daniel, anything?
Yeah. What are your 3 favorite things or rituals that you like to do on the day of your performance?
Yeah, so I tried not to implement too many rituals because then I feel I would get superstitious if I don't have time to do them. So usually what I try to do is I try to take a nap before a performance, but I had equally brilliant and devastatingly awful performances without a nap. So in a way, there is no method to the madness. But I will say having a little nap is just centering me and is sort of giving a nice, a nice break before the performance. So I feel like everything that happens after the nap is really only dedicated to the performance. So if I get up from the nap, I don't check my Instagram or do my email, but actually I just go for the performance. That's number 1. Number 2 is I try not, well, unless it's something where I'm jumping in with 24-hour notice, but I try not to save the performance by practicing like crazy on something. Yeah, all the practicing for a performance should be done at least, in my case, I feel like at least 5 days before the performance. Yeah, and then leading up to the performance, I try to make peace with the piece that I'm playing. Yeah, or I try to look at it in an amicable way. If I look for problems or I look for problem solving up until the very last minute before I go on stage, then I've not done my homework. Yeah, and when we have auditions at school and I go past the rooms where people warm up, I will hear people you know, and you hear the frustration. Instead of people just being like playing slowly, making peace, trying to approach it as if it's your companion rather than your opponent. Yeah, and I feel if a piece remains an opponent to the very last minute before you go on stage, it will also be your opponent on stage. And wouldn't it be great to have to take the piece by the hand and be like, let's do this together. Yeah, let's show the world how beautiful that HAYDN concerto is. Yeah. Okay, and you asked for 3 things, so I'm scrambling with 2. I make sure that I eat something that is not going to drag me down by the time 8 o'clock rolls around. Yeah, so I'm not going to have maybe a huge steak for lunch. Yeah, but maybe something light, something that's some carbohydrates. Yeah, something that's going to give me power in the evening. Maybe a light pasta, not too much cream. Just to be aware that you know, I'm as a performer, I'm also in a way a sports person, and to make sure that I have all the carbohydrates and sugar and you know, nutrition available to have a decent performance.
Thanks.
Well, from my side, I will not ask any questions because if we start, Johannes and I will never finish.
It will be long.
I will just say thank you for this inspiring 2 hours. I hope certainly it was for me, and I hope it was the same for our young colleagues. I want to say thank you to Pianoforte Chicago for helping us with the technical side of the stream, and most of all to Johannes for dedicating this time to the new generation.
Thank you very much.
So all the best, and we will see you again online and hopefully soon in person.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.